Hi guys, I hope everybody's doing good on this very rare university closing. This almost never happens at OSU, so you may consider yourself lucky or maybe unlucky if you were really looking forward to having class with me today. I certainly was, and in particular today because today was supposed to be my the time that I was able to share some of my expertise. So, but it's all good. Anyway, I thought I would record this video as a way to maybe get some conversation started over email, and as a way for us to maybe still have a conversation and have a maybe virtual classroom this week, given that we're not able to meet in person. And so I wanted to, record this video, to first of all to get, as I said, to get that discussion going, but also to get kind of give you a little bit of a framework for what we were discussing this week, and to share some some foundational ideas about this concept of visual culture that I wanted to discuss during today's class. And so I thought I would do that, and I wanted to end this video also with some questions for you and some prompts for you to respond to this video and to have a conversation with me and with the rest of your classmates. And so, and this is kind of experimental. I've never done this before, so we'll see how it goes. So let's see what happens with this approach that I thought of kind of on the spot when I got the text last night about OSU being closed. And as you probably can see, I am still in my PJs, and so I am feeling very comfy and cozy right now, and definitely staying warm. So I hope all of you are very comfy and staying warm as well. Okay, so. So one of the things that I wanted to maybe talk about or bring up in this video is this very concept of visual culture and what that means and how it's been understood intellectually. So visual culture, aside from as sort of a reference to the various forms of culture that emanate or that exist in our society through visual means, it's also like an intellectual scholarly framework that has been used by various scholars, I would say, over the past probably a little over 40 years, I would say. And so visual culture as an intellectual sort of project is kind of a departure from the more interdisciplinary understandings that we have used in the academy to do work on the visual. So for example, when we talk about visual culture or maybe visual cultural studies, we're talking about a very different kind of approach to scholarly work that is distinct from, let's say, art history or film studies or maybe advertising, which are these other fields, right, that deal with the visual. And what these more disciplinary fields do is that they tend to separate the various forms of visual cultural or display that we see. So, for example, art history will only look at images that are considered to be art. Film will only look at images that are considered to be film, right? And so what visual culture as an intellectual framework does is that it tells us that there is an inherent dialectic and interdependent relationship between images. So it doesn't make sense for us to just look at certain types of images in isolation, because the way that they function in society at large is in this very dialectic and interdependent way. And so what a lot of visual culture what a lot of scholars that do visual culture engage in is to look at images, different kinds of images, and the ways in which they interact. And so when you're also looking at visual culture, you're also looking at this kind of approach where all images are worthy of study, right? So as a scholar, you're not just interested in looking at images that maybe have, I don't know, aesthetic value or that are quote unquote beautiful. Like you see a lot of times in art history, that you're looking at images that have some that are seen to have some kind of aesthetic or innovative element to them. And so with a visual culture framework, all imagery is worthy of study, right? So there is this kind of non-hierarchical approach to the study of images, that they're all worthy of our attention. And it doesn't mean that because you're studying an image that you think it's somehow, remarkable or aesthetically pleasing or whatever. It's not about that. It's more about understanding that that all images interact with us on a social context, on a situated context, and so it's not so much about that the image is remarkable in any particular way, but we're studying the image because of what it does to us at a sort of social level, but also how maybe that image reflects gender tropes or reflects gender and racial hierarchies. And so as a visual culture studies person, if you will, you recognize also the pervasiveness of images. You begin to kind of query, why is it that as human beings we are such avid producers and consumers of images? Why is it that from the moment we wake up to the moment we go to bed, we are just bombarded with images, and we interact in such, I think, visceral ways with images on a daily basis. And so the pervasiveness of images is also something that as a visual culture studies person you might take interest in. Another important aspect also of visual culture is not just looking at images, but also looking at viewing practices, and the idea of looking and viewing images not as an objective, kind of straightforward action, but as a practice, as a social practice that is informed by race, gender, class, and other considerations. So the idea of viewing and looking at images as situated practices. And so we're not only concerned with what we look at, but also how and why we look at it. So, and in turn, how do our viewing practices shape the images that we make, right? And so those are all important ideas that we're interested in. When it comes to visual culture, we're also interested in the idea of meaning making, right? So this idea that images don't have any inherent meanings, right? The only time that images have meaning is because we attach meaning to them, right? We decide that this image of the Mona Lisa, for example, means, beauty, or means, high social standing, whatever, whatever meanings we attach to that particular painting. And so the question is, why is it that we attach those meanings to images? How does the process of meaning making, how is that process of meaning making informed by sort of gender, racial, class ideologies? And also what happens when meanings change over time or across physical or social spheres? Why is it that those meanings change? And so this idea that meaning is always dynamic, is never stable, is also really important. And I have to say that as somebody who was trained in art history, when I was first introduced to ideas around visual culture, it was really, really liberating to me, because I was somebody who was interested in the intersection of art and race and sexuality and gender and and other sort of factors, right? And I always felt that some of the methodologies of art history didn't really provide me with those opportunities to kind of explore those notions. And so I was also interested in also how power is cemented through the visual, and I didn't feel like I had kind of like the toolbox that allowed me to look through those ideas. And so I was very excited when I began to read scholars who were looking at images in these other ways. And so that was really exciting to me. And so the essays that you read for this week, in particular, the essays by Amelia Jones, John Berger, the Lisa Blackmore piece. So Amelia Jones is sort of talking about, that's the essay that talks about the intersection of visual culture and feminist work. John Berger's Ways of Seeing, which is the older piece in the group, that essay talks about, the ideas of sort of women as objects of the gaze. Lisa Blackmore turns to Venezuela and sort of the ways in which images are used by the dictatorship in Venezuela to cement their power. We have, of course, Gillian Rose and Tolia Kelly that talk about that intersection, really interesting intersection between visuality, materiality. And so what these 4 essays do, these ones that I just mentioned, what they do is that they provide us examples of how visual culture can be used as a model for for understanding and analyzing certain, kind of, I don't know, social hierarchies, certain ideologies. Now, the other 2 essays that I assigned for this week, so namely Jasmine Cobb's essay on the optics of respectability, but also my essay on street art in Chile, they're similar to the other 4 in that, those pieces are also kind of deploying this understanding of visual culture. Both Cobb and I are interested in how power is cemented through the visual. But I think additionally what we both do is that we also turn to the visual and creativity as a site of possibility. In particular for historically marginalized populations. We see creativity as a means to disrupt or challenge or rupture various forms of oppression. And so I think both of us are really interested in that. So if you see, like for Jasmine Cobb, and look at her essay, she is looking specifically at these friendship albums and how freed African American women who are still living during the era of slavery, and how they're using these friendship albums as a way to assert their own agency and to challenge and disrupt kind of prevailing images about Black women's bodies and Black women's lives. And so that's for me that's a really, she's really looking at these friendship albums as a site of possibility, and I feel a lot of affinity with that in my own work, because I'm looking at how street artists are trying to redefine what democracy means in Chile through these works of public art. And so this idea of creativity, in particular deployed through the visual, is a particularly powerful one for me when I think about strategies of resistance. So anyway, so those are some of the ideas that I wanted to sort of put out there for you to think about. I want to now turn to some questions that I would like you to think about and address, and use these questions to respond to this email thread that I'm asking, that I've started right now. So the first question that I would like you to respond to is the following: what significant ideas on visual culture and creativity did you find in the essays that we read for today? So if you could sort of highlight some ideas in your response. And in particular, if you could also highlight a particular passage in one of the readings, and you can choose any of the readings that you think were particularly noteworthy or remarkable to you. And so what I'm expecting is to have at least one intervention per person. And so when you do respond to this prompt, if you could email the whole class, so don't just reply to me, but reply to everybody in the class. And so that way, maybe some of you will be responding both to the readings, or you might respond to a comment that a classmate. So make sure that you read the entire thread also before you respond. Now for Shannon S. and Anne, I know you guys were going to be doing the discussion partnership this week, so I thought in lieu of that, I will be expecting a little more engagement from you. So while everybody is responding maybe at least once, maybe you guys could respond at least twice. And also, if there's anything that you want to bring up from your planned discussion partnership, please do so. So if there's anything that you guys were planning to do and you weren't able to do it, if you want to maybe share it over this thread, that would be fantastic as well. So I think other than that, I look forward to having this online discussion with all of you. You made this, I mean, if you're feeling, fancy, if you want to do a video, you can, but you can just respond to the thread over email, and that should be fine. So hopefully this works out well. Like I said, this is experimental, but I do look forward to hearing from all of you over email. And please let me know if you have any questions. And also please stay warm, and I will see you guys soon. Take care. Bye.